And last and definitely not least is the external audit report or independent audit report. Ray Wager is here from the firm of Mango Metzger Barr, and he's going to go through the executive summary, very similar to what the AOC saw. It's been a challenging year, not just for us, but for the audit firms, because they couldn't come in to do the field work for a couple of reasons. Some of the people weren't there they weren't wanted to talk to. So it was an interesting process, but I'm glad that we were still able to get our audit done very early in the summer and move things along. So with that, I will turn it over to Ray.
Certainly is different, isn't it? Good evening. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. This is one of the first times I've done it with the mask. You know what I miss? The mask. I miss people's expressions, you know, and all you see is the eyes. You don't know, and especially when I do things like this, as some people, when they hear something, oh, and I can't find that with the mask, but that's okay. We'll get through it. I have really good news as far as your overall financial condition, not as good as what you just heard. That was fantastic, to sit and listen that you are opening and you're working. Positive news compared to what we watch on TV every night. All they do is look for negative stuff. So that was really, really encouraging. I have a 7-year-old granddaughter outside of Philly, all online. And my daughter's a teacher, all online. So she's in one room and she's in the other, and my son-in-law is a doctor, so he's in the hospital. I don't know how they're doing it. I mean, it certainly is a difficult year, but to hear progress, that things are starting to really make sense, that was wonderful. I really appreciate that. Okay, as far as your overall financial condition, you continue to be very positive. You have a very good balance sheet. You have good reserves. You ended up last year in a good financial place. Okay, your expenses were down a little, but the revenues were down a little. You ended up with about 9% surplus out of your budget, which is very similar. Actually, no, it wasn't 9, it was 7. 7% surplus came out of your budget, okay? That enabled you to move some money around into some reserves, some critical reserves that going forward, I know you're going to need, and all schools are going to need. And those are primarily, you move money into unemployment reserve, absolutely right thing to do. You move money into the ERS and TRS reserve, and that's going to help you if, in fact, which probably will happen when the market, who knows about the market, but if the market doesn't stay positive, then what you're going to be charged from the systems is going to go up, and you have reserve money to help that. Outstanding. The other reserve you are able to fund, again, is an excellent reserve, and it's called the Employee Benefit Reserve, but it's to help pay the cost when people retire. So when you have employees retire, there's an associated cost when they leave, and now you have a nice reserve set up to help pay that. And you probably won't be any different than a lot of other districts where people are retiring earlier. They go, enough's enough. So you put money in fantastic places. Your overall equities went up about $5.5 million, including the reserve. However, you're appropriating more money for this new budget. So even though you did add some surplus, but you're adding some of that surplus as a revenue in your new budget, okay? And that's fine. That went up like $1.5 million from the year before, which is what you have to do. You know, you had additional surplus. You know this year's budget. You don't know how things are going to go in this new budget. So you position yourselves very well with your reserves. Your appropriated fund balance and reserves are in really good shape. So you'll be able to go forward unless there's something really bad. And I'm sure Darren will keep you up to date as far as something happens. And do we have a reserve that can help get us through the storm? And that's a great position to be in. If you weren't in that position, some districts won't have that money to go to. So you're in a much better position than a lot of schools. I could go on with a lot of other information. Darren covered some good things as far as what you move money to the school lunch, $277,000 to break even. Again, you had the resources to do that. So again, your conservative policies on your budget have paid off. Otherwise, the rest of the funds, you have money, you have a good sum of money in your capital reserves for future capital projects. You've utilized that very well. You need to go, when you have a project, you need to go back to the voters and say, we want to do this project, lay it all out, these are the costs, and this is how we're going to fund it. And you have some very good seed money to help fund those projects. And when you do that, then the state aid generated, it comes in as on the gross amount of the project, so you can actually end up not having an impact potentially on their taxes. And that does work, and it has worked for a long time. Okay. Is there any questions? Anything at all? The finances, and I don't have a crystal ball, so I can't help you much as far as what's going to happen in 2 weeks or 2 months. But again, you've done a really good job of positioning the district financially.
Anyone, questions?
Darren, can you mention what will be posted on the website?
So after this, I assume the board accepts the audit report.
Your microphone.
The full audit report will be posted to the website, and that goes through the management discussion analysis, all the GASB required items, and then similar to what you just heard with the fund accounting financial statements. So it'll clearly show budget variances both on the revenue and expenditure side as far as the major category areas where we ended up, and then also what the surpluses are on a per fund basis.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do have a question, Ray. And it has to do with the OPEB obligations.
Certainly.
There's a comment in the report that speaks to no like reserve or funding mechanism to help.
Correct.
Can you explain why that's the potential impact of that and the rationale why the state or whomever does not have anything to allow districts to help them cover that liability?
Okay, that's an excellent question, because all schools, all municipalities have that issue, is that in their contracts there's something that's allowed for people to stay on health insurance for some time period. Everybody's different, but that's what this post-employment cost is. The state says you cannot fund it. Illegal to fund it. Other states do fund it. New York, no. If Albany said you could fund it, then you could put away a ton of money that wouldn't be needed right away. It would be like funding. The theory is, it's a perfect theory. It's just like the retirement system. You could pay in 3% of everyone's salary into a fund, and then that fund pays the health insurance when they retire, just like the retirement system. They said, we don't want that. It's not legal. When they passed the law to allow for this newer reserve, and this goes back about 15 years, the employee benefit accrued liability, the intent of that reserve was to fund employees' health, retirees' health. When it finally got to a vote, they pulled that out. So you can pay for someone's 3-week vacation or something like that, but not the health insurance. I think Albany and our governor feels that, see, their liability is probably $10 billion, the state's liability. So if they said you could fund it, then the question is, why wouldn't they fund it? Well, that would be putting way too many dollars aside that's not going to be used right away. So they said nobody can fund it, okay? Including the state. The state's number is enormous with all their employees. So that's pretty much the long and short of it. Will it affect down the road? What will happen is that districts will be looked at when you go to borrow that will be one of their checklist items. So they'll look at probably 25 financial items from your audit reports, and one of them will be how much is your obligation for your retiree health. And that will come into the formula when they determine how they rate you and you get your bond rating. So I can't see that really doing much right away. There are way too many issues right now. Eventually, districts that have a big number for retiree health will probably be rated a little less. But when you look at your situation, your tax base, your fund balance, your reserves, right now certainly outweigh your obligation as far as an investment. Okay, so they're looking at it, who wants to buy Pittsburgh's bonds? And I don't think anybody's going to hesitate at this point. Down the road, don't know. Okay, does that help?
Absolutely, thank you.
Okay, anything else?
Ray, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ray.
Thank you. You couldn't tell who was talking to you?
I don't know who's
I'm right
talking.
here. I'm right here. We're gonna have arrows.
Okay.
She's smiling too, Ray.
Oh, yeah,
I am.
that's the important
I
part.
am.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for the report. I
Oh,
appreciate
you're
that.
welcome.